even if you were my husband. You couldn't tell me what to do.
I'm an extremely worried 40-something-year-old parent of children as young as 7 who I've overheard discussing Andrew Tate online over online gaming, and it's incredibly worrying as a parent. And luckily for me, my son was just hearing it on the back end and then started asking me questions about Andrew Tate and saying that his cousins, his friends think he's the OG. He's the top guy. They talk about him as if he's some type of god or some messiah that can, help all disenfranchised men at the moment who are feeling insecure about themselves because of social media. The way the world may be portraying men at the moment. I'm not too sure, but for some reason, something is clicking with
But what's interesting
is,
what's interesting. I do think we have to address how we're raising boys and what we're telling boys, but equally, even boys from very loving homes with dad in place as well, and not just mum, are falling for this.
Yeah. But this is the thing. This is what we've got to kind of try and work out what it exactly is. Is it more look at me lifestyle? I've got cars, I've got money. My life's easy or looks easy and fashionable. Is that the reason why these young men are holding on to what Andrew Tate is saying? And like I say, a lot of what everyone's talking about is a lot of people teenage years and young men or older men. But my son's 7. And if they're talking about it at 7 years old, parents out there have to be really careful
what does he say?
Kids are watching. Well, his cousin sort of said, he was like, "Who's this Andrew Tate? I've heard him on the news, Daddy." And he goes...
Which is inevitable, I guess, isn't it? That he'll...
Exactly, but this is it. And I said, well, what did they say? What did your cousin say? And he went, well, he's the OG, he's the gangster, he's the top man. And it's those types of words that get into young boys' minds to think, okay, if we live in a society where everyone's trying to beat each other, trump one another, and I think it might be for younger children, if they're thinking, social media, they see things on TikTok, they want to have that life. If that's the way they have to go and, emulate someone like Andrew Tate, they probably think that's right.
And have you taken a look at the content yourself?
Yeah, no, of course. I like to think I'm a balanced type of person, so that even if something is terrible or is being talked about in a negative way, that I will look into it to make
and
my
judge
own
it yourself.
And I can, and this sounds so horrible to that. I do not agree with anything with Andrew, but I can kind of understand. There's a bit of me.
I agree with. Oh no, hang on. I agree with some of the things he says. He's not a fool. This is why, because he gets people. He talks about having self-control. He talks about being responsible for your own life. He talks about looking after people that you love. That's all right. I can go with that.
And this is and he seems to hook the people who are, I don't know, like I say, who may not be too happy with themselves or the lifestyle that they have. And like I say, from my experience as a parent, it just kind of really worried me to think, okay, so if my 7-year-old can have these conversations with friends and family and stuff, what seeds are being planted in his mind? And I was just lucky enough that we've got the relationship that he can approach me and, feel open to talk to, about stuff like this, But there's going to be lots of children out there that aren't going to have that opportunity. And, it's more of a shout out to parents out there to make sure that they really do keep an eye on what their children are watching, because if kids as young as 7 are hearing this stuff and are starting to believe that's a hard behaviour to break.
And do you
in late life?
Do you have useful conversations with your kid?
Yeah, I do, because I even have moments, I'm not going to lie to you, where sometimes, I look at social media, I look at advertisement, I just look at the world that we're kind of living sometimes. And I can kind of understand why a young boy or young man might feel that, men are an easy target for whatever reason, or from a sort of, and I get that. But then I take a look at that and find out the reasons of why we take this course of action, of why we see this on the TV, and try and explain, like I say, with my son, and have chats with him about it, to say, to give him that safe environment that he can actually talk to me about this stuff, and to my wife as well.
Yeah, quite right.
We do come, we come from a loving family, but like I say,
You've got
like
to
you
be
said
equipped,
before.
haven't you, as the parent here?
Exactly. And I feel that we shouldn't just talk about men as, because it might not make parents think, okay, this won't affect my kid or my young teenager. But trust me, those kids as young as 7, like I say, they're on tablets and phones. I know how easy it is to give it to a kid to keep them distracted whilst you do bits and bobs. But that's how easy it is for these seeds to be planted in their mind from just scrolling through TikTok or YouTube Shorts. It just takes one video that speaks to them, and they're hooked, and they're going to want to enjoy more of that content, no matter what it is. And
the danger is, I've said this before on air, that when I was first planning to talk about him going back to the middle of last year, I obviously looked online and to find out what was going on, and as a result of just a few searches, really, I now get, if I'm scrolling on Instagram, I'm only on Instagram and Twitter, and if I scroll on it quite relatively quickly, Tate material will come up, and you just think, oh my God, I'm sure there's some method by which I could stop that, but it never ceases to amaze me, the stuff I hear coming out of his mouth, which he then, it'll be interesting to see whether his lawyer says otherwise, but there are all kinds of things on it that are crazy, but the stuff about women is just off the charts.
Exactly. I mean, the scariest thing about it that I've seen, is, like you said, how it comes up on your feed. Even if you regulate something like, get the social media companies to regulate people like Andrew Tate and stuff like that, it's so easy to then just post another video within seconds from another account, from someone else, and this stuff spreads like wildfire. And before you know, there's misinformation out there. There's people who kind of agree with bits of what he's saying. There's other bits that they're not agreeing with. And, it gets messy. And that's what I've seen in regards to this Andrew Tate thing. You've got people saying, well, he's innocent until proven guilty, which, in a sense, that's correct. However, there's another part of me that's, there's no smoke without fire at the end of the day. And based on the evidence of how he talks about women in his videos and stuff, no wonder, this kind of happened as it's happened, and these charges are might get brought against him because, the way he talks about women, my son, I've had to tell him, you've got your sisters, you've got your mum. Would you want anyone to talk about your mum and your sisters and your aunties or anything like this? And he was like, no, of course not, Daddy. And I was like, exactly. So I was like, do not follow, do not listen to what he's saying to you. If you want to know more, if you want to know about this stuff, talk to us. We're your parents, We'll be there to support you and help you and give you hopefully good advice, better advice than finding, let's just say, some guy like that online who's trying to sell himself to the people that are missing those type of aspects
from
Richard,
their lives. Stay on the line if you would, because Carl wants to talk. He thinks he sees it rather differently to you, so I'll come back to you for a comment at the end. Carl, hello, Carl in Romford.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How do you see it, Carl?
I see it as the other guy on the line.
Richard.
What's his name?
Richard.
I think you might need to spend a bit more time looking on your parental controls on your son's iPad or something, and so that he doesn't need to go on to there, because he should be talking to Daddy and Mummy about these certain things. He shouldn't be going on online in the first place on certain things like that. And then so that you can't say innocent is proven guilty, but there's no smoke without fire. That just can't reduce each other. You can't say you're innocent to proven guilty. And yes, there is smoke without fire, but you're innocent to prove guilty. So you might need to do a bit better on your parenting skills.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk to his lawyer in a few minutes. Separate from the case, because there's two things to talk about. There's the case and the detention, and there's also what he just says and is on record as saying and is visible in his videos saying. Are you, which I find very alarming, but what about your disturbing? What do you see and hear?
I think it's silly. Someone else said, I can't remember. I think he's silly in some of the things that he says, but the majority of the stuff that he says, I think he's taken out of. It's contradicted in a lot of the ways. But
why is he contradicted? I mean, I've got quotes in front of me here, direct quotes from him, in which he's talked about having a girlfriend, but going out and, I mean, he uses very coarse language for it, but going out and having sex with other women, and he says that's not cheating, that's exercise.
But hence the silliness of some of the stuff that he said.
That's the worst you'd say about that statement. It's silly.
No, it's not silly. It's damn right wrong.
Right. Okay.
But you know, I think a lot of this stuff is, you know, he's trying to, you know, I mean, he's done it very well. He's trying to get millions and millions of views and everything. But you can't deny a lot of the stuff that he says. He's absolutely right.
Like what?
The fact that, so for example, if I'm, you know, a lot of the stuff. So, if I'm walking down the road with you, and just say me and you was going out for something to eat, and then we was walking through. We was in New York City, and we were walking through a town, and it was and you wanted to walk through that town, but I know that it's very dangerous down there, and you shouldn't walk down there. Yeah, am I wrong? Am I wrong to say to you can't walk down there?
You're wrong to say I can't, but you'd be right to be concerned about me and talk about concern. Yeah.
But this is the thing. This is the silliness of it.
Why is that silly? I get to say where I walk, Carl, not you.
You and I'm concerned about you, I will tell you that you can't because I care for you. If I don't, if I'm going down the street,
Carl, just to reassure you. I would agree with you that it was dangerous to go to a place I knew to be dangerous, and I would probably not go there. But what you can't do is mistake a command with love, because it isn't. You could say, Sheila, please don't, because I can't tell you what to do, because that's the truth of it, Carl. You can't. Even if you were my husband, you couldn't tell me what to do. You could urge me not to do it, but you couldn't tell me what to do. You know full well that what Andrew Tate talks about in scenarios like that, he talks about care equaling control, and control that is total, and the control that involves having his name tattooed on your backside.
I agree with what you're saying there, and that's
which is bonkers.
Wrong. Well, that is bonkers, but you can't deny. Yeah, if I'm with me and you walking down it, do you think that if I love you, I'm going to allow? And
if I say I'm doing it anyway, Carl, what do you do? Grab me by the hair and drag me in the other direction to stop me?
If you're going to get hurt, and
then the better alternative is that you hurt me first. Excellent plan, Richard. How are your parental controls?
Oh, man. This is the funny thing. I don't want to bore people with the waffle, but the weird thing is my son and I, we do have a YouTube channel. This is why we use YouTube so much. We've actually got our own little channel and stuff. And this is why I'm so in tune with what he does online and want to warn parents of that. And we've got the parental controls. But what Carl's not understanding is if you search one thing once, that becomes part of your algorithm, like you did. You looked at something, and all of a sudden your feed, because the algorithm thinks, okay, this is the content that they're interested in.
Oh, I know. And for my job, I do all kinds of searches, as you can imagine, and I get strange stuff sent to me.
Yeah. And you'll get bombarded with stuff that you're like, whoops, I don't actually want to look at this stuff.
Yeah.
But going back to what Carl was saying, you've done it the exact same way. I appreciate what Carl was saying about Andrew Tate. The majority of his stuff may be to do with discipline, healthy eating, good mental well-being. But there's 1,000,001 people out there who can tell you that stuff, who isn't at the same time telling you to control your partner, to beat your partner,
to throttle
hurt
her,
your partner, and to say these words. But it's like, Carl, would you ever talk to your wife or your partner or your daughter, if you have a daughter, or your grandmother? Would you ever talk to them that way?
No, I am sure the answer is no. Richard, I hope the answer is no. Richard, thank you. And thanks to Carl as well for his call.